Hey everybody, it's Weaver again, and today there's another semi-serious topic that I wanted to talk about that was actually brought up on one of my genderqueer forums, and the entire idea of it is, do trans people actually belong in the LGB? Now, at first, I was kind of astonished at this thought, because of course they do. They're just as different. They're just a minority as well. So, of course they do. It's a matter of necessity. And then when I actually stopped to break things down, I realized I was jumping to a lot of conclusions. Because first and foremost, the LGB portion of the LGBT is all mutually exclusive sexualities. You can't be one and another. Whereas transgendered, you can be transgendered and a lesbian, or transgendered and gay, or transgendered and bisexual. But the other three seem mutually exclusive. Not only that, they're based on sexuality, whereas transgendered is based on being on a gender identity. So there is a difference between gender and sex. So that being said, the trans community kind of falls outside the realm of the queer community in that regard. Something else that really got me thinking is that a lot of trans people do identify as strictly their taken gender. They don't identify as trans. They have completely dropped the prefix. They've completely moved into this area of being perceived as and acting as heteronormative. So if someone identifies as and is identified as by others heteronormative and binary, then how are they queer? To break this down a little bit further, because I realize that this is a pretty confusing topic, if I identify as a female and I'm attracted to men, then I am a heterosexual woman with no claims to the LGBT. The only claim that I would have is genetic. And if I don't want to identify as queer, why am I forced to? And one of my friends actually brought up a really great point. It's out of necessity. It's out of necessity for protection in specific, due to the fact that trans people are very targeted. And as much as I would like to say that this isn't the case, if you kind of take this entire argument and put it in a bubble where there is no segregation, where there is no discrimination, suddenly the need for the trans community to be a part of the rest of the queer community falls apart. You're left with arguments that are very, very shallow and very, very superficial. So the entire arena seems to be, well, I'm different and you're different too, and because we're both essentially put upon by the majority, let's stick together. And the trans community in this day and age, not in that bubble, but in reality, would not be able to adequately defend themselves should the need arise. Because while gay people are 1 in 10, trans people are 1 in 17,000. So, whereas you could have a group of, 17,000 homosexuals, you'd have a group of 1 or 2 trans people. So trans people are very few in number. Trans people are we're not very well represented in the community. We're not very well represented in society. And a lot of the need arises from this societal interpretation that even if you transgendered, you're still queer. And I don't think that that's fair. I don't think it's fair that even if you transition, even if you identify as heteronormative, that you're still queer. However, this is a bit hypocritical on my part, because I still think that even if you transition and identify as heteronormative, identify as a heterosexual binary individual, I still don't think you have any claim to the phrase cisgendered, because cisgendered is in opposition to trans. And due to the fact that you were for a very long time and still are transgendered because you were assigned one sex at birth and you transitioned into another. Because of that fact, I don't think that trans people have any claim to cis. So at best, you would be heteronormative, because you would be heterosexual and you would identify along the gender binary. However, if you have that gender privilege, are you still allowed queer privilege? Are you still a member of the queer community? And if so, is it your choice or is it forced upon you? And I realize that there are more questions than answers in this particular conversation, but this was something that someone brought up and it really got me thinking. And when I started talking about it, it got me thinking even more. And now I'm just really not sure about this, because there's a part of me that's Well, you can identify however you want, and if you identify as heteronormative, then you're not a member of the LGBT. That's just, the simplest fact here is that if you identify as heteronormative, as binary, then no, you're not. But if you identify as queer, then you're queer, and it's that simple. But at what point does the queer community become kind of like a safety net? When you decide that you're not transgendered anymore, then you go and you become a part of normal society. And I think that, first of all, this marginalizes the entire rest of the queer community. However, I also think that there's a certain portion where if you do go into normal community, into normal society, and are rejected or are villainized or whatever, if you come back to the queer community, I think that just marginalizes it further, because now it becomes this kind of safety net. It becomes this, it becomes a bit of a joke. And I never really looked at it this way, but the queer community has a massive open door policy if this is the case. And if you identify as straight, you're not a member of the LGB. You could still be transgendered, because if you're transgendered, you can easily identify as heterosexual. However, I am very curious as to people who are non-transgendered queers, their view on this, because this is coming from a slightly biased source, because I'm transgendered and I am queer. So even if the T is dropped, I'm still in the LGB. So this is something that still hits home for me. But the fact of the matter is that I stand nothing to lose. If the T were dropped today and it were just the LGB, what would happen to the trans people? What happens to trans people who don't identify as binary? Are they still a member of the LGB, despite the fact that the LGB would now be strictly sexual orientation based? And this all got me, I don't know, it's just very tantalizing to me. Hopefully it's got you guys thinking as well. So hopefully some of you have opinions on this. You can make a reply video or send me a comment or send me a private message or whatever. I would really appreciate hearing from you guys. Hopefully you guys are having a good time. Hopefully I haven't ruined it. And I will talk to you all later.